The DOJ is hiding something big, and one MLS is calling out NAR's weak defense. You are not going to believe what happened. Is the NAR's proposed settlement really an attempt to increase transparency or reduce it? One large MLS is crying foul, alleging a lack of transparency in commission payments, while the Department of Justice continues to be shrouded in secrecy. In an industry where transparency should be of utmost importance, why does the DOJ want to keep commission payments under wraps? Join me this week as we dissect the latest news articles that have sent shockwaves through the real estate industry. Realtors, buckle up. Things are about to get real. Here's the lowdown. The DOJ has come out swinging against real estate commissions. In this article posted by The Real Deal, Jessica Leal, an attorney for the Department of Justice, said, and I quote, "We believe offers of compensation should not be made anywhere, but certainly not on the MLS." They argue that revealing commission details could lead to price fixing and less competition. The DOJ has long been investigating real estate practices. In fact, they want to reopen its investigation into NAR's participation rule, an investigation that they settled in 2020, I might add, which has been at the center of all of these antitrust lawsuits, class action lawsuits that have been popping up all over the country. Last month, the department received the green light to reopen its investigation. I'm sorry, hold the phone. Didn't you say that they settled this 4 years ago? Yes, they did. And now they feel that it's perfectly acceptable to renege on their agreement and reopen the investigation. Does anyone besides me find it interesting that they agreed to settle it in 2020? But then when somebody new came into the White House, all bets are off. Stop the presses. We are going to rescind our agreement, and we're going to be able to reopen that investigation if we so choose. Perhaps in 2020, they thought that that was an argument they weren't going to win. But once the new guy came over, it was like, psych, just kidding. Oh, we're totally going for this. Then on the other side, we have the National Association of Realtors, traditionally a defender of transparency in real estate, now caught in a compromising position where, so the terms of their settlement, a lot of people are alleging that they kind of dodged the tough questions. I have been a member of NAR for 19 years, and I know that a lot of you have too. Whether you agree with the settlement or you don't agree with the settlement, I read all of your comments on my previous videos, and I heard you loud and clear. A lot of members are very unhappy at the way this all went down. They feel like the association did not do enough to protect its members. They feel like by settling, we're basically admitting fault and we should have continued to fight in court. I understand why they felt like they had to settle, but tell me what you think down below. Do you feel like we should have settled, or do you think that we should have kept fighting in court so that we could have cleared our names? Because even though we've settled and did not admit any fault, it sure seems like people think that we did something wrong. Here's why transparency matters. It's not just an industry buzzword, and it's not simply to protect the consumer. It's also to protect the agents involved in the transaction. It is to protect the agent who represents the buyer from thinking they are going to be paid X and then showing up to the closing table and finding out they're actually going to receive half of that. It's like the listing agent could say, "Hey, thank you so much for bringing that ready, willing, and able buyer to the transaction. Appreciate all of your hard work, and here's your check, and it's half of what we originally said it was going to be, but thanks so much for playing." When commissions are transparent, consumers can make informed choices, but also agents are able to justify the fees that they charge, what we are being paid. So what happens when transparency is removed? Only a few years ago, NAR told us that buyer's agents could no longer ever say that they work for free. Now, I'm pretty sure that we all said that at some point. In fact, I said that all the time. That was one thing that I constantly said in my buyer presentation. You will be able to hire somebody with extensive industry knowledge, somebody who knows this market inside and out, somebody who's been doing this for a very, very long time and has closed hundreds and hundreds of transactions. You get all of my expertise, and you don't have to pay for it. I get paid by the agent that represents the seller at the closing table. Well, we were told that we could no longer say that, and I had no problem explaining to the buyer how I get compensated. It was perfectly fine that I could say This is how I get paid. This is when I get paid. And this is how much I will get paid. In fact, when I was showing the buyer homes, I usually have a printout of the MLS listing. And right in that field, it says what the co-op compensation is. I could show the buyer on this particular house, it says they're paying me this percent. On this particular house, it shows they're paying this percent. But under the proposed terms of the settlement, that will not be in the MLS at all. Therefore, I can't have that conversation with the buyer because it is not disclosed. Now, hear me when I say I'm not talking about the amount that's being offered, if any. I'm not saying that the seller should be required or obligated to pay the agent that represents the buyer. That's a completely different conversation. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I do think we need to disclose is what, if anything, is being offered. If they are paying zero commission, I need to know that. If they're paying 3%, I need to know that. If they're paying a flat fee or a bonus, I need to know that. This lack of transparency is just a disaster waiting to happen, in my opinion. If I represent the buyer, I now have to call the listing agent of every single property that they are interested in seeing and find out in advance what is the commission being offered, if any, and can we negotiate that? Then I have to go back to the buyer and say, okay, we're good to go see this property because they are paying X percent. This property, they are not paying anything. Do you still want to go see it? Now the buyer can say, yes, I still want to see this house. I have the money in my bank account. I am able to pay you your brokerage fee. Let's go see it anyway. Or they may say, I'm afraid I got to cross that one off the list. Between my down payment, my closing costs, my moving expenses, the inspections I'm having done on the property, I'm tapped out. I don't have the money to pay your fee. So if they're not going to pay it, I'm going to have to cross this home off the list. We don't need to go see it after all. Or they could instruct me to call the person back and haggle. So now I got to call the listing agent and say, okay, I know you said you were not offering a commission at all. Would you agree to this percent? And then maybe my buyer can make up the difference. This is a colossal waste of time. This is going to add hours and hours and hours and hours and hours over the course of a year of working with clients, having to negotiate this stuff when it could have just been clearly communicated through the MLS the way that it has been. Thanks for fixing something that wasn't broken, only now it is. But more importantly, it protects people from accusations against violating fair housing laws. This, I guarantee you, is going to be the lawsuit of the future. The buyer's agent calls to find out if they're offering a commission and they say no. Later that property closes. They say, oh, Becky Sue represented the client. They call Becky Sue, they talk about it, and Becky Sue says, yeah, I got paid X percentage. Okay, when I asked, the answer was no. When you asked, the answer was yes, and this is how much. What's the natural conclusion that those people are going to come to? It takes all of 8 seconds to do a Google search because realtors love to put our photos all over our branding, don't they? They'll be able to go to Google and immediately find all of your social media profiles and your website and the videos that you've made, and they're going to see what you look like. And if there is a significant difference in the way that you look versus somebody else, they're going to draw a conclusion and make the allegation that the reason you said no to me and you said yes to her was based on my appearance, some sort of protected class, my age, my race, my nationality, if I had an accent. They'll be able to do this with the buyers too. If I present a written offer with the buyer's full name on it, they go do a Google search. Maybe they'll find their LinkedIn profile or their Facebook profile or some sort of resume on Indeed.com where maybe there's a photo attached. They're going to be able to find this. And if they are not getting their offers accepted, you know what they're going to allege. When we all play by the same rules, there is far less opportunity for bad actors to do things that break the rules, and this maintains the integrity of our industry. It doesn't destroy it. Transparency is the key here. And apparently that's exactly what the Northwest MLS thinks as well. They have called out both NAR and the DOJ, demanding more transparency, not less. Here's what Housing Wire had to say in their article. The NWMLS Board of Directors made the decision to opt out at its most recent meeting, the organization said Tuesday. NWMLS is member-owned and not affiliated with the National Trade Association, although it was eligible to join in under the terms of the settlement. It It has roughly 35,000 members, and it could have been released from claims if it contributed roughly $100 per member to the settlement fund, or $3.5 million. But doing so would have bound NWMLS to the NAR settlement terms, and that was unacceptable to the group. That was their phrase. It is unacceptable. NAR's proposed settlement agreement largely duplicates the rules and practices in place in NWMLS's service area for several years, with one notable exception. The settlement agreement eliminates compensation transparency for buyers and restrains sellers' choice by prohibiting sellers from making offers of compensation through the MLS. Instead, the settlement agreement allows for offers of compensation off MLS, where that information is hard to find and not available to all buyers and brokers. That change is a step in the wrong direction, and it is detrimental to consumers and brokers alike. NAR's removal of compensation transparency from the MLS pushes consumers and brokers to make secret deals off MLS, inviting deceptive practices, discrimination, and unfair housing, NWMLS stated. And I completely agree with that position. What do you think? Are they doing the right thing, or do you think they're doing their members a disservice? Because it sounds like the board of directors of this MLS made the decision. Tell me in the comments below. What do you think? Now on to the DOJ. Under the Biden administration, there has been a noticeable shift. You'll remember a couple of months ago where Biden was in Las Vegas and he said,
last week, the National Association of Realtors agreed for the first time that Americans can negotiate lower commissions when they buy or sell their home. On a typical home purchase, that alone could save folks an average of $10,000 on the sale or purchase. I'm calling on realtors to follow through on lowering their commissions to protect home buyers.
I will link to the video where I showed that on camera, because a lot of people did not believe me when I said that he said that. I'm like, oh yes, he did. He is coming for our industry. I believe that 100%. And if you don't, I think you need to wake up. The DOJ wants to reopen this case that they had settled in 2020, and now NAR has had to request a hearing to prevent them from being able to renege on the agreement that they made 4 years ago. Is the DOJ trying to shift the rules in favor of these, large institutional buyers with deep pockets who are buying up entire neighborhoods at a time versus the small independent brokerages and the individual solo agents? Because this isn't just about commissions. This is about information and who controls the information, because information is power. When you have the power, you get to influence what the market is doing and decisions and negotiations, laws that are passed that will affect you favorably versus laws that previously were not helpful for you. So I'm very curious to see, will other MLSs join this, or are they going to just sit back and watch to see how it all plays out? Are they also going to abstain from being a part of the settlement because they fundamentally disagree with what those terms were? Because this could set a precedent that not only impacts real estate, it impacts other industries as well, any small businesses. And what concerns me so much is when the DOJ is this involved in what the real estate industry does. They are coming after our profession. They are coming after our livelihood. They're not going to stop at real estate. This is only the tip of the iceberg. If they can get away with this, they're going after other industries as well. Who's going to be next? If you're as ticked off as I am about all of this, then A, hit subscribe, because this is a community of ethical real estate agents who are not going to sit by and shut up and hope that it all works out for us anymore. We are speaking up. We are letting our voices be heard. We are going to the polls and voting so we can let our representatives know exactly what we think about the people that are representing us right now, and make some big changes come November if that's how you feel. And up next, you've got to watch this video where I talked all about the attorney who represented the plaintiffs in the Sitzer-Burnett case. If you don't know what went on in that courtroom, grab yourself a bucket of popcorn. You're going to want to watch this one next.